We're talking about AI today, and I think for most of you, anyone who works for me, Claude is the only thing we talk about every day, all day. It's crazy, but actually AI in the business, in the industry, is becoming a larger topic, making more and more of an impact as it becomes more and more developed. And I don't think these panels will change over the next 2 years. I'm afraid, guys, you're going to hear a lot more AI chat, and it will continue to do so. But I agree with you that the change is coming, if not already here, and it is fascinating. Tim, I'm going to start with you, if that's okay. And we're talking about, I suppose, as I just mentioned there, cutting through the hype a little bit. You've obviously got high footfall, high throughput in the cafes. You say 1,000 cafes?
1,000, yeah.
It's a lot. How do you separate what AI does that kind of enhances day-to-day operations versus kind of what is people are talking about on LinkedIn, as it would be? Where are the actual wins coming from, and what AI is really enhancing your business?
Okay, so I think that we're all getting a lot of contacts regarding AI from vendors and stuff like that. So I think it's really important in the early stages to ask the right questions. So what I like to ask is for use cases, first of all, customer references, stuff like that. That helps. We've also got a head of AI and data engineering, who I tend to weave into every single meeting that I can, and he absolutely hates me for doing it. But we've got him as a subject matter expert, so that's basically how we can initially ascertain, if it's going to impact stores in a positive way, or if it's not actually something that's going to work.
I haven't got the mic, but fascinating you had a head of AI. That's the first time I've heard that, I think.
Was AI and data engineering.
We added the AI.
He just wanted a fancy title.
Okay, sorry. Right, thank you. Cheers. And Andy, to you, obviously you mentioned airports, travel hubs globally. How do you work out if an AI solution? Have you got a head of AI?
A head of AI and data governance.
Okay.
Head of AI and data engineering.
There you go. And how do you make sure that what you're putting in can scale? Because obviously you're quite diverse in terms of what you're offering. You mentioned 800, 700 different brands you have. How do you go about implementing AI into quite a diverse portfolio?
I think that's a broad industry challenge at the moment. I think there's a huge amount of AI innovation, but proving it at scale, I think, is still a journey that we're all on. I think there's ultimately, yes, we've got a huge diversity in our business, but as Tim said, the kind of understand the use case, understand the business problem, and ensure that we have foundations in place, the right data, the right governance. Ensure that it's not a one-trick pony, i.e. it's just for a single location that is very specialist to that, but have a capability that is adaptable to its market conditions, it's interoperable from a data perspective, and that it's adoptable by the operational team, so trusted, understood, and ultimately, underpinning all of this is that it drives value for the business.
And have you done much of that?
No.
Good. Moving on.
Yeah, it's good. So, yeah, we are in a place where I think we're in the testing phase. We're very mindful of the governance side being global business. So we've probably dialed up on protecting the risk, perhaps, rather than the innovation. We're starting to pivot more as we start to build out these foundations to a bit more innovation. We've started to build out use cases that are probably internally focused. Later forecasting is an obvious example. We're starting to look at things like optimizing trading hours, so using AI to predict and understand if we open longer or actually we closed earlier, whether that would have a benefit to performance.
Thank you for the segue. Because John, I'm going to talk to you about I've got my stat here about forecasting. 82% of UK-based operators are already using some form of tech-based forecasting tools, but accuracy is only averaging around 62%, which would worry me. That's actually a worrying forecast. That 62% are only accurate. From your perspective, where are the red flags that you're seeing with AI, I suppose, in terms of what people are implementing and what bottleneck they're facing before they go there? Because that's quite a worrying stat that nearly 1 in 2 are having problems.
Yeah, so I'll first start with, I completely agree with what people are saying, that the hype sometimes doesn't match the reality. And the first wave you probably might have heard about, as you know, the US in particular has a lot of drive-through locations. So the first wave of AI was really around, we're going to automate the drive-through and make it where, they can take orders, no person involved, etc. It's completely failed in the US. Completely failed. Everybody was doing it, starting it, and everybody abandoned it because the ambient noise, inherently it had decently high error rates. Now, the fault I was telling a couple of people was, look, most people don't know their error rates at drive-through with humans, so all of a sudden the error rates by the system seemed high. But that's an example of where, everybody like lemmings went in a big way and all tried to do it and then all sort of failed at once. So I do think there's a little bit of, you have to try and experiment. The opposite example, or at least an example we have, is we released kind of an AI forecasting a number of years ago. And that AI forecasting, for months and months, we released it, no charge to the customers initially. So there was no charge at all. We had almost no adoption. 1-2% of our locations were using it for a while. And then all of a sudden, over the last sort of 12 months, it's ramped up to about 50% of our locations are using AI forecasting. And you'd say, why the big ramp? I actually believe that there was sort of a learning of all the operators around, was it actually better? Was it improving the forecast? And it took time to get there, and belief and data to say, here's what you would have forecasted if you did it manually, and here's what the forecast was, and looking at that data. So it eventually, and it keeps going up every month now. I do think we'll get to a point that it won't be 100%. There'll always be 3% that will decide not to do it.
Do you think that's a bit of the tail wagging the dog a little bit, where AI is being used by people at home, ChatGPT, and they're actually starting to find more accurate answers in what they see, and then actually it's translated to corporate life and professional life, where GMs are now actually thinking, well, actually, I use AI every day in my personal life in ChatGPT. I'm trusting forecasts more because, as a former area manager and GM, I can tell you now, I never trusted before. I always thought, I know better. I know this city. I've been here for ages. So believing that, especially across huge estates, I think is one of the biggest challenges these guys face.
Yeah, I do. I do think, obviously, at home, getting usage, learning. Also, remember, in our industry, there's a lot of people who get promoted. So remember, you have younger GMs coming into the jobs, and they're A, more tech savvy, but then B, they also come into the job and say, oh my God, this is overwhelming. Oh, if this system can forecast for me, great. They'll take one thing off my plate and I don't have to deal with it. And so I do think naturally we're going to end up with a higher number anyways, just due to that.
Tech savvy workforce, unlike us, I suppose. I'm sorry, John, I'm not including you there. Right. And prioritization is quite important. ROI is something that you guys alluded to a little bit there. Where have you got some real, you mentioned use cases, where are you seeing some real, I suppose, what's most important to Caffè Nero when you're looking at what you're going to do, and where have you seen the best results so far?
So what we're currently looking at is product availability. So that's making sure that we've got the right amount of stock in a specific store. If there's not enough stock, then obviously we're going to lose out on revenue. And if there's too much stock, then we're going to waste it. So it's something that we're looking at the moment.
What led you to that? Was it the fact that you were noticing drop in revenue or 86 as a way of growing our stock?
Well, I think a mixture, to be honest with you. We've got a AI generated sales forecast now that we're looking at, and then we're pumping that into CrunchTime. Excuse me. So in partnership with CrunchTime, we're doing that, and then CrunchTime is going to, hopefully, we're still in the early stages at the moment. It's hopefully going to be able to tell us which product should be in which store, and then the AI is just then going to just enhance it and keep an eye on that number, and then the ROI should hopefully come from there.
Very great. And Andy, from your side, what's leading the charge for not just AI but tech adoption generally, but particularly around AI? Is it operational pain? Is it commercial upside? What's the thing that is kind of pushing your decision making over the edge?
It's a combination, really. The commercial value is a huge need, and we're looking at use cases that drive basket size or kind of order size within units through intelligent led upsells and recommendations. operationally, labour forecasting and inventory forecasting is a huge aspect of our business. We have a large labour force. It's about a third of our cost base, and we have labour that we can't just get into our units in a couple of minutes. Often they need to drive to an airport, get a bus from the staff car park into the airport, then go through security. So the timeline to be able to adapt to varying conditions and needs for labour is really, really important to us. So getting that right is hugely important. A huge amount of what we're focusing on really is, I guess, internal efficiency as well. So how do we put tools and insight and decision making, speed of decision making into the hands of our colleagues to be able to accelerate their work, but still empower them to do their jobs.
Anyone's ever worked their side, Sasha from Bills, you're here. They're about to do that. It's a challenge, right? Any staff getting their side is always difficult. John, from your point of view, obviously the most important thing these people want to know is how quickly can they make some money back up your product or any product in AI. So in terms of ROI, how quickly can you see, I know it's how long's a piece of string type answer, but typically how quick can you see some kind of return on accurate forecasting? And it's a kind of an obvious question, but I'll let it take you.
Yeah, so we did a lot of analysis on what would be the best data. Now, obviously, it depends on good data. You know, it does rely on good data, and I'll give you a simple example, not restaurant related, but our technology related. We do use AI around our support. So when people call in, and I'm sure many restaurants do around questions or online, it was interesting to learn initially our rates that what you do, right? You turn on the AI, then you start having it generate answers, and you have your own support people review those answers. The amount it was correct was horrible. I mean, absolutely abysmal. Like 3% of the time it would be correct, and our support people would have to change the answer. And you realize it was because it was combing through our information sources, of which we had outdated ones internally. It was reading through bad data and then regurgitating bad information, maybe of a prior version of our software, etc. So it really teaches you how much you have to have decent data in order to do that. So that's the first thing. You need decent data to use. And then even when you have decent data, AI only works if you have a decent volume of data. And so what we learned is 400 days. Forecast. Sure, it'd be great to have 9 years of forecast data, but you don't get that much better accuracy over 400 days of data. But if you go much less than 400 days of data, your accuracy starts to go way down. So we found 400 days was like the optimal around maximizing, not getting too much data and not back data. So when we get a new customer and we try to look at the data, they say, oh, well, we want to load 9 years of data. Like, can we just focus on the last 400 days of data, which allows the conversion to be faster? And so that's what we've optimized toward right now. I mean, that may change because, AI is changing all the time, but 400 days of data, that minimizes the amount of time that we have to get the data, load it in, and then start to see value. And then typically what we do is, there's a set of pilot locations that use the AI first, and we look at that first. So I would say probably within 3 months, that's when you can really start rolling it out to other locations.
It's pretty cool. It's garbage in, garbage out is our favourite phrase, isn't it? But actually, it's like talking to my kids. If I don't tell them the correct things, they tend to tell everyone else lies. But anyway, and balancing, one of the big challenges we have here in the UK, John, is actually that when we do roll out tech, especially in an expansion process, we have vendor issues. I'm not accusing CrunchTime here at all, but we get this elastic band and it gets stretched, right? We get to a point where we're scaling with a partner that maybe wasn't ready to scale, or we're scaling to a point that our systems are starting to break. And I suppose to the whole panel, to you guys, I think I had a little stat here. Let me just check it. 90% of UK-based operators report vendor-related challenges during expansion. How do you balance high impact, not just AI, but tech implementation when you're rolling out at such scale, particularly with you guys, because it is fairly complex, right? The bigger you get.
I think it's I think adoption is one of the most important things. We're scaling out a new solution, making sure you get it right from the start, and good relationship with the operations teams, and choosing someone who is someone who's honest, a team that are honest, and you can get honest feedback, and you can then pump back into the pilot stages, etc.
Perfect. And so, Andy, you've got quite a, what I say, distributed workforce. Is that the way to describe your workforce? And how are they trusting what the AI? When you're doing, I mentioned it before about trust and GMs adopting forecasting and actually acting beyond it. How long is that? Are you seeing that? Are people taking that on straight away, or is it quite a long journey?
It is a long journey. As you mentioned before, kind of the GMs typically feel like they know their space better than anybody else. So
Sometimes they do,
and sometimes they do, exactly. But it's not implementing the technology for technology's sake. It's ensuring that it's the right choice. It's understood. It's trusted. Trust is hugely important. And then ensuring that the performance and value is understood back to the workforce as quickly as possible. So those KPIs are really important. The other aspect, I would say, from a labour forecasting perspective, is ensuring the human buzz term, but keep the human in the loop, but enable processes to ensure that they enrich the outcome rather than necessarily kind of conflict with or disagree with. So often, if there's an event on and you want to kind of adapt that, if the data feeding the forecast doesn't understand that event, then a GM can enrich to ensure that information is provided and enriches the forecast rather than goes in and overrides the forecast. So still allow the algorithm to work in the best possible way. So it's really getting that balance between kind of human oversight, human kind of enrichment, as well as making sure that the technology and solutions work to the best outcome.
And just another one, sorry, how do you communicate that then? So when you are implementing change and you're going through the process and making sure you've got the right answer, how is it? Because the biggest problem I always used to find was getting it from operations down to the front line and through that middle management, I suppose. How do you do that in such a again diverse workforce?
So ensuring that the change is led by business experts that are accountable, ensuring that there's effective training, making sure that there's effective KPIs, and forecast accuracy and continuous improvement. So as we're delivering these capabilities, we're starting to kind of embed more kind of product management behaviours within the business where it's continuously improving, and there's this specialism that really understands the business challenge, the business problem. We're also investing in more effective change management. It's an area that we've been quite poor on in the past. We have often kind of led change by technology rather than led change by business transformation, and we're pivoting away from. And I talk about it as a technology. If you buy a nice new Range Rover and you try and reverse it into a 1930s garage that doesn't fit, you've got to adapt the overall environment. And so we're investing in change. And our journey with CrunchTime around inventory management is a really good example of that, where we empowered our local business teams across markets to really get behind the transformation. We've created kind of a North Star process in how we want to operate inventory and supply chain capability at a kind of a macro level. And we've used that as our guiding light to then make decisions and instill that change and transformation within the business. And then using CrunchTime and John's team to really kind of enable that.
It's quite refreshing to hear change management. I think in hospitality generally, change management is something we do quite poorly, even though we handle change every day and every hour. But I think from a scientific or from a learning level, I don't think a lot of brands I've worked for in the past have really focused on how we deal with change. John, you get to work with all these lovely people. How do you experience change these days?
I was going to add to that because he's bringing up a great point. Like, I'd love to say that every one of our implementations of CrunchTime has been overly swimmingly and perfect. They have not. And I would say the number one reason that it goes a little sideways and we have to recover is because of the change management and operations. And it isn't necessarily the IT team's problem. That often it's looked at, oh, well, it's a system, so the IT team's going to implement it. When the calls come in after CrunchTime goes live, it's not, oh, this isn't working, or I can't click on this, or how do I find this? Most of the calls are like, wait, this number does not match this number that I had from last week. Why is that? And that's an operations question. That's not necessarily an IT question. And so when this change management aspect around, oh, now we're calculating it this way, because often when they put it in CrunchTime, they change some calculation from the past. Maybe it's actual versus theoretical. Maybe it's this way they calculate food costs. There's some change that often comes in. And the operators are calling, those first weeks that it's live, and then they say, wait, this doesn't match this number, or what's going on here? And those are operational questions. Those aren't IT questions. And so that change management to be ready before those calls, like we told you this is what it's going to be. Like, so we found the best projects are when operations are heavily involved, and that's the change management aspect.
Because ops are the best. Just saying. They're all operating laughing. No, I love IT. When you work. Anyway, what? I think we've got a room full of operators rather than techies by the sound of it. Yeah. They'll all be calling you, John. Anyway, but I suppose tracking that success, because it's important, right? I think change management is important. I think whether you put a box around it and bring a professional in to teach people, or whether you do it through great leadership amongst your operations team, what do you measure to track success? How do you know if it's working? Because obviously you can see numbers moving the right way, that's great, but are there other metrics you can use to measure it?
Yeah, I mean, there's the human element as well. If we're putting technology, whether it's AI based or any kind of technology into shops or stores, then there's a human element, isn't there? So you can find some sort of feedback mechanism from the stores, from the operators. I think also from a KPI perspective, having a very rigorous project management framework. So when you're going from pilot to trial, and you go from trial to phase one rollout, whatever it might be, just making sure that you're monitoring those KPIs, because different solutions will have different types of KPIs. So just being mindful of that. KPIs might change as well. You might want to introduce new ones or remove ones you've got in place.
Thank you, my friend. Right, we're going to look at the future roadmap. This is what it says on my list. And do you want to add any more on that last bit? No? All good? Okay. John, as AI becomes more predictive, autonomous, what does it look like for the restaurant manager, the AI-powered restaurant manager, as we move into, that sounds frightening, doesn't it? The AI-powered restaurant manager. 2026 and 2027, I mean, there's been such big leaps in AI in terms of, obviously we've been talking about it in these panels for a while, but actually the progress, I think, is becoming quite visible in some of the brands that we're working with. What does it look like for, I suppose, the next, let's work on 6 months to a year?
Yeah, I'd say there's been a huge wave of a recognition of how much time the store manager is spending looking at systems in the back office, scheduling, trying to figure out the forecast, trying to manage this, manage that, but not actually in the front with guests. And I think that's the wave you're going to see, is that the acceptance of AI comes out of, now we can push the store manager to be upfront with guests, looking at different issues that AI can't catch. Does AI know that a sign is in the wrong place and a customer could trip over it? Maybe it's not going to know that. No camera's going to do that. Not in maybe my lifetime. But so the push is to allow the manager to be much more out on the floor and not looking through things. And I think the big wave that's coming is around, instead of filtering, like the best example I give you is the idea of reporting that we understand is going to start to go away. Like these static paper reports that you get once a month. I really believe that's where it's going to change for the manager the most, because they're going to be able to say into their phone, give me the stats from last year and how many of these items we sold it. And it's gonna show up. They are not gonna have to get the.
And it's going to be
report
right.
on it.
Yeah, and it's going to be accurate.
And it's going to be accurate, and give me a prediction of how many, double bacon cheeseburgers I'm gonna sell tomorrow. It's going to come, it's going to be accurate, and they're not going to have to sit in the back room looking at some report to do that. That's what's really going to change for the store manager. It's going to be voice-based, they're going to be able to ask, it's going to give the answer is going to be accurate. And that's going to bring them out to the front instead of the back. And I think that's the biggest change. It'll probably take us 5 years to get there. I'm not one of these people like next year it's all going to be there. But 5 years, maybe 7. But that would be my prediction. But most restaurants will operate that way.
I think it's exciting, right? We do a lot of these panels and a weekly podcast. It's a lot. And most of the conversation is around real change. Like we want to find real change with tech. I mean, we talk about it a lot, and everyone, I'm sure we trot out the same sayings or I do every week on the bloody podcast. But I think it's the first time in a long time, I think, the last 6 months, where I'm seeing some real opportunity to allow these. I went to a restaurant, a mid-market, I mentioned to you before, chain on Sunday afternoon with the kids, and it was terrible. I mean, they are a great brand. It was terrible. Food quality was awful. Service was okay. Cleanliness was bad. And now AI is not fixing any of that, right? But your point to the fact that there is no excuse not to be 100% in your standards on the floor doing what you should be doing when all that stuff's getting looked after. That's where I think that we're going to get some real benefit. And from an operator's angle, it's just like want to grab it and run with it. I think it's quite exciting. From your point of view, Andy, do you see decision making? We talked a little bit then about finding out data quickly. Do you think we're going to get to automated decision making to get these guys making decisions in front of them? Do you know what I mean? Instead of them having to search for that data and kind of make those decisions. So how far away from that are we?
Good question.
That's my job.
I think we're not a million miles away, but it will be incremental, like all of these kind of large changes. I think everybody believes there's a kind of light switch and everything will be in this different kind of paradigm of automated and AI-led and everything. I think ultimately, and I'll kind of repeat what I said earlier, I think the human needs to be in the loop. What AI will do is accelerate and enrich and improve the decision-making that our colleagues and our customers experience. I think that our colleagues will, and John talked about it, I call it eyes up strategy, which is you want your colleagues looking at the customer and engaging with the customer, giving that experience and service to the customer that they expect and deserve, not staring down at till screens or staring down at back office screens, staring down at pieces of paper with orders on it, or staring down at pieces of paper with reports that have got 75 columns of data. That we need to pivot to kind of enrichment and acceleration through better insight, better decision making, where our colleagues are focusing on the experience of the customer, but then can oversee the performance and operation of their business, and then are able to engage in those exceptions to correct where that kind of human kind of adaptation and intelligence is still needed.
Very cool. And finally, for Caffè Nero is quite interesting, right? Because you've got a very consistent model. Am I right in saying that?
Correct,
Yeah.
Yep.
So you've got high throughput. They're doing 4 or 5 actions behind the till. How does AI? Obviously, we've talked about the decision making going on in the back, which helps. But how does that translate to you guys at the front? Because it's still, I think Black Sheep Coffee were here today, one of your friends. But how does it translate? Because it's interesting seeing all the coffee concepts in the high street and where they're really going to find that extra 1%. Where do you think that's going to come from AI?
I think there's definitely something in AI freeing up the managers and the stores to, as we were saying, do other tasks in the stores, greet the customers, look after the customers better, etc., etc., etc. I don't know whether I can see a sort of fully automated AI system with regards to the sort of store manager, for example, not making that final decision. I think if it was up to me, we'd always have them in the loop, just to have that final sign. I think Andy, you mentioned about a project that you're running similar to that, where the operator will always have that final say, you know, because they obviously they know the stores better than anyone else.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you very much.
Can I-
Go on, yeah, you can have.
One of the use cases that I think is so important to our business, which I would love to say is as automated as possible, is data management. So as a business that is diverse and lots of brands, we've got lots of menus, we've got lots of unit data. We knife and fork data all over the place, and it causes huge challenges in terms of one, the accuracy of that data to drive the likes of AI, accuracy and consistency across channels to be able to be consistent in the way that we present our menus to our customers. And three, being able to use it to be able to drive that insight and that fast decision making. So one of the use cases I'm trying to push is kind of agent-led data management teams. So we end up with agent workers that in essence manage our data, move our data around, make sure our data is accurate. And I think I suspect it's a use case that is a challenge for everybody in varying forms, but that's one of the areas that I do think we can really drive a high degree of automation.
Yeah, it's fascinating because that's done in silo right now. Because you think of all the different SaaS products people will have in their stack, each one is managing a different set of data, right? And then somehow they need to come together and tell you what to do. So it is fascinating. Right, one more question for you, then we'll move on to some of the questions on the screen there. If you could give one piece of advice to these lovely people in the room who are just starting their AI journey, what would it be? Should we start with you there, John?
Well, you say the top.
What would you, yeah,
Piece of advice.
if you had 1 minute with them before they left today?
Oh, I would say pick a initiative, pick a set of locations, and a manager. Pick an initiative, pick a set of locations with managers who are interested in it, and start there first.
Perfect. Just like the adoption you talked about. Andy, same question to you.
Ask ChatGPT for the answer.
And there's the IT team.
My advice would be understand the business problem, don't just try and implement technology. So.
Love that. And finally, my friend.
I'd say you don't need a head of AI, but find someone who can be your subject matter expert, someone who you can go to understand the trends, understand that space and what's going on there.
I think that's really relevant, right? Actually, because a lot of people are interested in AI because there aren't no former experts, right? There's people who've worked obviously in IT for a long time, computer scientists, but actually now that we can all code, it's become fascinating. So a bunch of coders. Right, moving to our questions. Mr. Bird has a question here. Keith says, "Can you share your top 3 ROI projects, please?" Should we take one? Should we take one each? I haven't got one, so.
Yeah, so we're still quite early on in our AI journey. So what we've been focusing on over the past couple of years, as these guys were saying, is getting the data correct. So we've obviously got lots of different data pipelines coming in from different territories around the group in the world, and we've made sure that data is nice and clean. So any BI reports and projects or anything like the assisted ordering that we were talking about, the sales forecast, making sure that data is definitely correct.
How hard is that journey? Because obviously you've got a lot of data. Is it a very complex thing to do?
It's taken a while. It's definitely taken a while. We have to ask the head of AI and data engineering.
He's not here today, can't say.
He's not. Doesn't actually exist. No, he does.
Head of AI is ChatGPT. It's Claude. Is it called Claude? Yeah. And the same question.
It's a difficult one, isn't it? We were so early on in our journey that adoption of Copilot across our workforce. So we are pushing Microsoft Copilot as a kind of assistant, AI assistant to our workforce. But we're being selective in how we do that. But I walk around our office and everybody's using Copilot for generating tender documents through to regression analysis on labour cost lines. And
how hard is that? I think that's really interesting. So how hard is that to manage? Because actually, I think people are using. We were talking. I was in Dublin at an event the other week, and they were talking about they were using Claude secretly on their non-work handsets, so they could actually get the answers they wanted from stuff they were doing. How are you policing? I mean, or can you police it?
So we have a AI policy, which is use Copilot and everything else. We have guidelines in terms of how to do that. We stood up and we sat in an event as a group function with about 200-300 people. About 3 months ago, our CEO stood up and went, "You all understand the AI policy, don't use Copilot only. Right, now everybody's put your hands up if you've used something other than Copilot this week to do your job." Immediately, 80% of the audience hand up, including the CEO. So there's a challenge there. You can lock it down, and we are seeking to understand how best to lock it down, and then be choiceful and mindful about how to then understand how to adopt further. That there's choices out there. There's one that rules them all, and therefore we need to be choiceful, understand, prove out, and then understand how we can deliver that as a safe and secure capability. Because I don't think everybody understands the implication yet of the conversation.
It's a bit like vaping. It is. It's like vaping. No one really knows what's going to happen to your body yet. We're going to find out in 10 years when they'll grow an extra leg. But that's, and I think Soho House, I was talking to Mitch from Soho House, and he said to me they've locked off all the AI models from all of their team because they were worried about data being put in and all that kind of stuff. John, we have one here for you. How does CrunchTime, it's quite actually topical, leverage AI to improve unified data? So we talked about Caffè Nero on their journey on unifying their data. How are you guys helping on that journey, or can you?
Yeah, we certainly can. It has been a big initiative for us to try to pull the data together and not just, remember, we're back of house. So you'd say, oh, but you don't have the sales data, whatever. No, we actually pull in all the sales data, and that's on a menu mix basis. So not just, oh, what was the total dollar number and total checks. We pull over the menu mix data so we know exactly which products were sold, and we incorporate that. So we are focused on providing unified data. The next thing we're doing is starting to allow other data, because we already pull in the sales data, but we don't pull in things like loyalty data or other data. So we have so much of the cost data. And we're pulling in all the sales data, but we don't have loyalty or some other things or customer reviews. So that's the upcoming thing, is we're going to be pulling in that data as well. So it could be kind of a unified dashboard for the general manager.
That's cool. Like what marketing people call a single customer view, but of your entire customer cost.
Entire customer cost, so the general manager doesn't need to go anywhere else. Because, look, let's face it, across all industries, you know that the most failed IT project is a data project. By far. It's not even close. It's like 90% of data projects fail or something like that across all industries. I don't know specific restaurant data. So we're
go for 100.
we're trying to help with that. But I was going to say on the pre-ROI projects, I'll just point out, we've kind of said it multiple times, but forecasting is by far, like, I cannot even tell you, like, you brought up labor. Most GMs just take last week and repeat it. Absolutely the same. And it doesn't matter what the weather is. It doesn't matter if it's Ramadan or if it's Passover. It doesn't matter if it's whatever, because those dates move every year. They just take last week and repeat it, or last year and repeat it. And it is inaccurate. I can tell you, like, we see it after customer, how inaccurate their forecasts are. And I can tell you, you may think your forecast is great. I ask you to look again, because that's where the ROI is.
And so what's really fascinating about, I worked in FMCG for a bit. I sold highs before I did this, a company called Prime Minister, not the Prime Minister. And no one wants to be him right now. And what was really interesting at FMCG is the way they forecast, the way they look at their data. They are so much more detailed than we would ever be in hospitality. And there's no reason why. I remember that there's no reason why we wouldn't be that detailed and why we shouldn't look at it. They save millions a year because they said made 250,000 pies a week in a small factory in Bristol, and they say millions on getting that right and getting it to the point of 95% accuracy. And I say to when we meet our customers, always about accuracy. I said, if you can find that 1%, that little bit more, especially if you're an enterprise brand, there's so much lying on the floor you can grab. So I just want to end on that note because I think it is fascinating that 62% accuracy point we mentioned before is real, and that means it's 38% of winning out there to be done. At the moment, there's not a lot of winning, so if we can get a bit of that, that'd be great. Look, I really appreciate all of your time and coming up to the 15th floor. It's been fantastic to meet you properly. A little round of applause.